You never know when you'll see your last sunset or your last sunrise. That's the thought that keeps circling in my head like a raven, dark and restless, refusing to fly away. My name is Carrie, and just a few days ago, I became a widow. I sat at my husband Liam's funeral, numb, watching strangers and friends alike weep for a man who seemed so simple in life, a devoted husband, a man who loved crossword puzzles, warm tea with lemon, and Sunday morning walks in the park. But his last days, spent in hospice care, were filled with silences that felt too heavy. He never explained, never confessed, but I always felt as though he wanted to tell me something before his final breath. Yesterday, I returned to that hospice. It wasn't to see Liam, of course, but to collect the last of his belongings. The nurses, kind but tired, had packed everything neatly in a box, his robe, slippers, shaving kit, and a diary I never knew he kept. But then came the first shock. Tucked in a separate drawer were not one, but 4 phones. 4. I froze. I knew about one, a battered smartphone with a cracked corner that he kept by the bedside. But these others? Sleek, newer models. Hidden away as though no one was ever supposed to find them. All of them were password protected. Some needed facial recognition, others fingerprints. But Liam was gone. Cremated. Ashes in an urn sitting in my living room. I whispered into the empty ward, "Why, Liam? Who were you calling?" I carried the box out with trembling arms, the phones clinking against each other, secrets rattling like bones. That night, as I sat in my quiet kitchen with a glass of wine, the second blow came. My sister Natalie showed up uninvited. Her face was pale, but her voice was firm. She didn't even wait to sit down before saying the words that nearly broke me in half. "Carrie, my son, is Liam's child. And I will take half of your house as inheritance. $2 million. Her words hit me like a blade between the ribs. I laughed bitterly. That's impossible. Liam couldn't have children. We found out a year ago. He was sterile. You know that. Natalie didn't flinch. She only crossed her arms and whispered, "Believe what you want. But the DNA won't lie." Her son, my nephew, was 4 years old. 4. Which meant her claim reached back before Liam's diagnosis. For a moment, I felt dizzy, clutching the table to keep myself steady. I demanded a DNA test. I was ready to hand over Liam's hairbrush, his toothbrush, anything the lab would need. Natalie resisted at first, refusing, her eyes darting nervously. And then, to my surprise, she agreed. When the results came in, my world cracked open again. The boy was Liam's. The paper in my hand felt like it weighed 100 pounds. The letters blurred as tears filled my eyes. Natalie watched me, her lips pressed together in something that wasn't quite triumph, wasn't quite shame. I couldn't stop myself from whispering the only question that mattered. "How many times? How many times did you sleep with him? And how long did it last?" Her answer came in fragments, like stones thrown into a well. She insisted there was no affair. She swore that night after too much wine, Liam had confessed to her, years ago, that he once donated sperm in college to make extra money. She had been in love with him secretly for years, a shadowy, unspoken obsession. That night she almost acted on it, almost let herself betray me, but Liam pulled away. Instead, she had quietly tracked down his donation, bought it, and conceived her son. I sat there in disbelief, staring at my sister, who was both victim and thief. Liam had never told me any of this. He had never admitted to being a donor, never revealed this past version of himself. And now, because of her actions, her child was legally Liam's heir. I was no longer the sole widow, I was sharing Liam's ghost with Natalie and her little boy. But as devastating as this revelation was, it was only the beginning. Because those phones still waited for me, humming with secrets, silent witnesses to a life I never really knew. 3 nights later, I sat across from a hacker in a dingy cafe on the edge of town. He was younger than I expected, his hoodie pulled low, his fingers quick as lightning over the keyboard. 4 phones, huh? he said with a smirk. That's not normal husband behavior. You sure you want to know what's inside? I nodded, my palms sweating. I need to know everything. For a few $1,000s, money I shouldn't have spent but did, he began unlocking the phones. One by one, they cracked open, spilling digital guts. Encrypted messages, hidden contacts, photographs of faces I had never seen. One folder was labeled with a name I didn't recognize. Another contained coordinates. Another had bank account numbers, balances that made me dizzy. And then, pictures. One showed a smiling woman with her arm around Liam. 2 children, grown, stood beside them. A family portrait. Not ours. Not mine. My stomach turned cold, my mouth went dry. All these years, had he lived a double life? Before selling our house, because Natalie's legal claim pushed me toward that terrible decision, I stumbled across something else. Under a loose floorboard in our bedroom, hidden in a metal box, was money. Stacks upon stacks of cash, bound tightly, smelling of dust and secrets. And a photograph. The same woman from the phone. Her smile, radiant. Liam's hand resting on her shoulder. I sank to the floor, clutching the photo, sobbing. Who was he? Who had I married? The nurses at the hospice had said he liked to talk at night, unable to sleep. One nurse in particular, Lydia, had been kind to him, staying by his side during those long dark hours. I remembered her face, kind but secretive, as if she carried a burden she couldn't put down. Something in my gut told me she knew the truth. She had seen behind Liam's mask. I returned to the hospice. Lydia was there, folding linens in the quiet hall. I approached her, desperate. Please, I whispered. You know something about my husband. About Liam. I'll pay you, I'll give you whatever you want. Just tell me the truth. But Lydia shook her head, her eyes clouded with something like sorrow. Carrie, some truths are heavier than grief. And once you know, you can't unknow. Her refusal wasn't the end. It was only the pause before the next storm. Because Lydia, whether she liked it or not, was the keeper of the final secret. A secret she would eventually take across the ocean, back to Ukraine. But not before she found me again. Not before she revealed who Liam really was. And why he chose to die with so many lies. When I left Lydia that night, the hospice smelled faintly of antiseptic and roses. A new bouquet had been set in the lobby, but the scent didn't comfort me. It made me nauseous, like sweetness rotting from the inside. I drove home with the photo of Liam and that strange woman clutched in my pocket. My hand shook against the steering wheel. Every memory of him, our wedding day, the vacations, the quiet evenings by the fire, suddenly felt counterfeit. What if every smile had been rehearsed? Every word measured? The hacker texted me the next morning, phones decrypted. You'll want to see this in person. I went to his apartment, a dim place where the curtains were drawn even at noon. His desk was cluttered with wires, glowing monitors, and empty energy drink cans. He spun one of the phones on the table like a coin. Your husband wasn't just hiding flirty texts, he said. He was living in layers. Different names, different IDs, different accounts. And the way these are set up, he whistled low. Looks like spycraft. Government level. Or at least ex-government. My pulse pounded in my ears. You're saying Liam was, what? A spy? The hacker shrugged. Let's just say he didn't need Tinder to juggle women. He had cover stories, encrypted channels, money moving across borders. See this? He pointed to one screen where a map dotted with pins stretched across the globe. These are coordinates. Check-ins. He was traveling more than you knew. I leaned closer. Cities lit up like fireflies, Berlin, Prague, Warsaw. But Liam had never left the country during our marriage. Or so he told me. My throat tightened. Show me more. He opened another file. Photos. Dozens of them. Liam in a suit beside officials I didn't recognize. Liam at an embassy event. Liam boarding planes under names that weren't his. And then, the family again. The same woman, the same two grown children. I stared at their faces. One of the kids looked so much like him, it made my chest ache. They live in another state, the hacker said, as if reading the metadata out loud. Denver. Been there for years. I staggered back from the screen. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from collapsing. All this time, he had another family. A real one. Children I'd never known. Did they call him Dad? Did they sit with him at Christmas while I sat alone, waiting for his excuses about work? Why would he marry me? I whispered. The hacker gave me a look, pitying, but blunt. You were cover. Normal wife, normal house. Makes a spy look ordinary. Makes him invisible. The word stung. Invisible. I had been camouflage, nothing more. When I left the hacker's place, the world outside looked sharper, more dangerous. Every face seemed like it might hide a secret. Every shadow looked like it could reach for me. Back at the house, I couldn't stand still. I tore through Liam's belongings, searching for more clues. I opened boxes, emptied drawers, checked inside his books. Under the floorboards in our bedroom, where I had already found money, I discovered something else, a small black notebook, wrapped in wax paper. Inside were numbers, dates, and names written in a coded shorthand. It smelled faintly of tobacco and old leather. One entry chilled me. Denver, March 14th. With L and K safe. Must keep C in the dark. See, that was me. I dropped the notebook as though it had burned me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. At 3 a.m., I got in my car and drove aimlessly until I found myself back at the hospice, parked in the empty lot. The building glowed softly in the dark, like a lantern for lost souls. Inside, Lydia was on the night shift again. She looked tired but not surprised to see me. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I found his other family, I said. My voice cracked. Denver. A woman. 2 kids. Who was he, Lydia? Please. Her hands tightened around the stack of linen she was folding. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she said softly, he talked to me, yes. More than to anyone else. But not everything. He carried secrets heavier than cancer. I grabbed her wrist. He used me. Lied to me. If you know the truth, you owe me. Her eyes shimmered in the dim light. He never stopped loving you, Carrie. Even when he was drowning in his other lives. The words cut deep. I shook my head. If he loved me, why didn't he tell me? Because telling you, she said, her voice trembling, would have destroyed you before the illness ever could. I let go of her wrist. My chest was tight, my throat raw. Before I left, Lydia looked at me with something like resolve. Carrie, there is one more thing. Something you don't know. Something that could change everything. But I can't tell you here. Not yet. Her words followed me home like ghosts. When I walked into the bedroom, I noticed something strange. The money I had hidden back under the floorboard was disturbed. The metal box was slightly ajar. Someone had been inside my house. I froze, listening. The air was still. But I wasn't alone. The box was ajar. I swear I had closed it, tucked it beneath the floorboard so carefully, my fingers shaking as I pressed the wood back into place. Now it was shifted. Slightly, but enough for me to know someone had been here. I froze in the middle of the room, listening. The silence was too thick, like it was waiting. My eyes scanned the corners, the closet, the shadows stretching across the carpet. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. But the air carried a charge, as if someone had just slipped out moments before. I crouched, lifted the floorboard, and pulled the box free. The money was still there, or at least most of it. But the photo was gone. The one of Liam, the woman, and the 2 children. A hot wave of panic surged through me. Whoever came here didn't want the cash. They wanted the evidence. Proof of his other life. I grabbed the box, shoved it under the bed, and locked the bedroom door behind me. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. I texted the hacker, "Someone was in my house. The photo is gone." The 3 dots of his reply blinked, stopped, then blinked again. Finally, "Not safe. You're being watched. Don't stay there alone." I dropped the phone, my chest tightening. Watched. The word rang in my skull like a bell. The next morning, I went to Natalie's. I didn't want to, but her smugness was preferable to sitting in my haunted house. Her son, Liam's son, was playing on the floor with toy cars. I couldn't look at him without my stomach twisting. His hair had the same wave as Liam's. The same dimple appeared when he smiled. Natalie poured herself coffee and watched me with sharp, calculating eyes. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," I said flatly. "Someone broke into my house." She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe they wanted the money." "No. They took a photograph." Her mug stopped halfway to her lips. "What photograph?" I hesitated. Should I tell her? Could I trust her? After everything she'd done, the lies, the manipulation, the way she'd used Liam's sperm donation as leverage, no. Not fully. "Nothing you need to know," I said finally. She smirked. Secrets on top of secrets. Just like him. I stood to leave, but she added one last dagger, "You should be careful, Carrie. The man you thought you knew, he made enemies. And they don't stop just because he's dead." Her words clung to me as I drove away. Back at the hacker's place, I told him about the missing photo. He leaned back in his chair, chewing the inside of his cheek. "Then they know you're looking. They know you found something you weren't supposed to." "Who are they?" I asked. He shrugged. "Could be government. Could be foreign. Could be the other family. When you live like your husband did, you collect shadows. And sometimes, those shadows don't die with you." He pulled up one of Liam's encrypted email accounts. "Look at this." The screen filled with coded messages, but the subject lines were clear enough: "Safe House Denver. Transfer complete. Operation Magnolia." My blood ran cold. Operation Magnolia? What is that? The hacker shook his head. No idea. But it was ongoing. Until about a month before his death. I pressed my palms to my face. "I married a stranger." "No," he said softly. "You married exactly who he wanted you to see." That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a cheap motel under a false name, my paranoia growing by the hour. Every sound outside the door made me flinch. Every car in the lot made me wonder if it was waiting for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I went back to Lydia. She was my only thread of truth. She was sitting in the hospice garden, her coat pulled tight against the evening chill, a cigarette glowing between her fingers. She looked at me as though she'd been expecting me. "You're not safe," she said simply. "I know," I whispered. "Tell me, Lydia. Please. Who was he?" Her eyes flickered. She crushed the cigarette in the gravel. "Not here. Too many ears." "Then where?" She thought for a moment. "Tomorrow. Meet me at the train station. 5 o'clock. If I don't show, leave. Don't wait for me." Her voice was final, heavy with something that sounded like fear. I wanted to press her, force her to tell me now, but the look in her eyes stopped me. She wasn't refusing out of cruelty. She was refusing because whatever she carried could still kill her. That night at the motel, I dreamed of Liam. Not the sick version in hospice, but the younger man, full of life. He smiled at me across the bed, his hand reaching for mine. For a moment, I felt the old warmth, the old love. Then his face blurred, splitting into 2, 3, 4 versions of him: husband, father, spy, stranger. And I woke up gasping in the dark. The next day, I waited at the train station. 5 o'clock came. The crowd surged around me, people with suitcases, children holding balloons, couples saying their goodbyes. I scanned every face for Lydia. 5:10. 5:15. No sign. At 5:30, I was ready to give up when a hand touched my shoulder. I spun, and there she was. Pale, trembling, her eyes darting around the station as if she expected someone to drag her away. "We don't have much time," she said. "But I'll tell you one thing." She leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. "Your husband didn't just live 2 lives. He lived 3. And the one you don't know about yet is the one that killed him." The noise of the train station blurred into a dull roar as Lydia's words sank in. 3 lives. My knees weakened, and I gripped the railing to steady myself. "What do you mean?" I hissed. "Tell me everything." Lydia shook her head. Her eyes kept flicking to the crowd, scanning for someone, anyone. "Not here. Not all of it. If they see me with you too long, it's over." "Who are they?" My voice cracked. She pressed a folded slip of paper into my palm. "This address. Tonight. Don't let anyone follow you." And then she was gone, swallowed by the moving crowd. I stood there frozen, staring at the scrap in my hand. A street name scrawled in shaky pen. No city, no instructions, just a place. That night, I followed her directions. It led me to an old boarding house on the edge of town, its windows yellow with weak light. My heart hammered as I climbed the creaking steps. Lydia opened the door before I knocked. Inside, the room smelled of tea and tobacco. A single lamp burned, casting long shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Lydia motioned for me to sit. "You want the truth?" she asked. Her voice was soft but sharp, like glass wrapped in velvet. "Yes." My throat was dry. "I need it." She lit another cigarette, her hands trembling. "Your husband, Liam, that wasn't his real name. The man you buried was known by at least 4 aliases. To you, he was Liam. To his other wife in Denver, he was Thomas. To certain governments, he was someone else entirely." I gripped the chair. "Governments?" "He was recruited young. Brilliant mind, steady hands, no attachments. At first, he worked as a field operative. Then, later, he became something more complicated: a courier, a fixer, the man who carried secrets across borders. When you met him, he was already trying to get out. You were his way out." My chest tightened. "But he never left. He kept going." She nodded slowly. "Because once you're in, you don't get out. He told me once, in the middle of the night, when the pain was bad and the morphine made him honest, Carrie thinks she married a teacher. But she married a ghost." I felt the blood drain from my face. "So the other family, the woman and the children." Lydia's eyes softened. "That was his insurance. A second life to disappear into if the first collapsed. He loved them. And he loved you. But differently. For him, it wasn't betrayal, it was survival." The words struck me like stones. Survival. As if I were just a tool, another mask he wore. I whispered, "What about the third life? You said there were 3. She leaned closer, lowering her voice until I could barely hear her. "The third life wasn't about wives or children. It wasn't about governments either. It was about a secret he stole. Something so big, so dangerous, people are still hunting for it." I shivered. "What kind of secret?" Her cigarette trembled between her fingers. "He never told me. But he called it the key. And he swore if it fell into the wrong hands, thousands would die." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the chair. And now that he's dead, they think I have it? Her silence was the answer. A loud knock rattled the door. Both of us jumped. Lydia's face drained of color. "Don't open it," she whispered. The knock came again, harder. We didn't breathe. After a long minute, footsteps receded down the hall. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Lydia grabbed my hand. "You need to leave town. Now. Tonight. If they think you know where the key is, they won't stop. They'll break you." Tears burned my eyes. "But I don't know. I don't know anything." She looked at me with something like pity. "Then pray they believe you." I left the boarding house in a daze, my pulse roaring in my ears. The streets seemed darker, the shadows deeper. Every car that passed made me flinch. Back at the motel, I pulled the black notebook from my bag. The coded entries swam before my eyes. Denver, Berlin, Kiev. Operation Magnolia. I thought of the missing photograph, of the hidden money, of Natalie's cruel smile. Every piece was connected, but I couldn't see the pattern. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message was simple. "Stop digging or you'll join him in the ground." My hands shook so hard I dropped the phone. That was when I realized, I wasn't just uncovering Liam's past. I was standing in the middle of the storm that had killed him. And it wasn't finished with me yet. The text message glared up at me from the cracked motel phone screen. "Stop digging or you'll join him in the ground." I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. My body shook so violently I could barely stand. I locked the door, shoved a chair under the handle, and curled against the wall, waiting for dawn. Sleep never came. Only the pounding in my chest, the dry taste of fear. By sunrise, I knew I had two choices: run or fight. I wasn't ready to abandon everything, not yet. There was still too much I didn't know. And so I drove straight to the hacker's apartment, desperate for answers. He opened the door groggy, rubbing his eyes. But when I showed him the text, he sobered instantly. "They're watching you," he muttered. "And if they're threatening, it means you're closer than you think." "Closer to what?" I snapped. "What is the key?" He dragged me inside, shutting the door tight. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up more of Liam's files. "I've been digging since last night. Operation Magnolia wasn't just some random code. It was a program. A leak. Data stolen from multiple governments. Weapons schematics, surveillance grids, things most people shouldn't even know exist." My stomach churned. "And Liam had this?" He nodded grimly. "Or part of it. And everyone wanted it back. That's probably why he had the money hidden, the phones. Why he kept moving." I pressed my hands to my face. "So what does this have to do with me?" "Because if Liam trusted you, even without telling you, then he may have left it somewhere only you can find." I pulled the black notebook from my bag and handed it to him. "What about this? Can you decode it?" He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. "It's ciphered, but not impossible. Give me a few days." "Days?" I nearly screamed. "I don't have days." He met my gaze, unflinching. "Then you'd better decide fast, hand it over to them, or keep running." I left in a daze. Outside, the city looked different, too bright, too sharp, every stranger a potential threat. I got in my car, but as I pulled away, I noticed a dark sedan in the rearview mirror. It followed me through 2 turns. 3. My blood iced. I drove to the one place I thought might throw them off, Natalie's. I banged on her door, frantic. She answered, annoyed, but when she saw my face, her smirk faded. "What now?" she asked. "They're following me," I gasped. "I need to hide." She narrowed her eyes, weighing whether to let me in. Finally, she stepped aside. "Fine. But if you bring your husband's enemies to my doorstep, so help me." Our husband, I spat before I could stop myself. Her face hardened. We didn't speak much after that. I sat at her kitchen table, watching her son play with his blocks, innocent and oblivious. Liam's blood. Liam's heir. And me, sitting across from my sister, both of us bound to a man who was never truly ours. That night, as I tried to rest on her couch, I heard her on the phone in the other room. Her voice was low, urgent. Yes, she has it. I'm sure. No, she doesn't know yet. Fine. Tomorrow. Ice shot through my veins. She was talking about me. I slipped out quietly before dawn, my heart hammering. Back at the motel, a note had been slipped under my door. Lydia's handwriting. Carrie, I leave tomorrow for Ukraine. If you want the truth before I go, meet me at the hospice at midnight. I clutched the note, tears stinging my eyes. Midnight. One last chance. The day crawled by. Every hour felt like a year. At 11:30, I parked outside the hospice, the building glowing softly against the night sky. Inside, the halls were silent. Lydia was waiting in Liam's old room, sitting by the bed where he'd drawn his last breath. Her face looked older, worn with secrets. You came, she said softly. Tell me, I whispered. All of it. Please. She nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Liam lived 3 lives. Husband. Spy. And thief. He didn't steal money, Carrie. He stole knowledge. Files, blueprints, data. He kept it because he didn't trust anyone, not the people he worked for, not the people who hunted him. He said one day it might save his family. Or destroy them. My throat closed. And now they think I know where it is. Her eyes glistened. Because you do. He left it for you. I shook my head. No. I don't. Think, she interrupted sharply. The places he took you. The things he hid. The passwords he used. He trusted you, Carrie. More than anyone. You already have the answer, you just don't see it yet. Her words slammed into me like a storm. And then I realized, she was trembling. Not from fear. From urgency. Before I could press her further, glass shattered in the hall. Heavy footsteps echoed closer. Lydia's eyes widened. They've found us, she whispered. The door burst open. The door slammed open with a crash, splinters flying. 2 men in black coats stormed into the hospice room, their faces hard, their movements swift and purposeful. One grabbed Lydia by the arm, the other lunged toward me. Run, she screamed. I bolted into the hallway, my shoes slapping against the linoleum, my heart hammering against my ribs. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting the corridor in a stuttering glow. Behind me, I heard the men shouting, Lydia's voice cut off abruptly. I ducked into the stairwell, racing down 2 flights before bursting through the side exit into the cold night. My car was at the far end of the lot. I sprinted toward it, fumbling with the keys, when a hand clamped over my mouth. Shoo, a voice hissed. I froze, thrashing, but then I saw her face, Lydia. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes wild, but she had escaped. They'll kill you if you keep running blind, she whispered urgently. I have to tell you now. All of it. We crouched behind the dumpster, shadow swallowing us. She clutched my hand so tightly it hurt. Your husband wasn't just working for them, she said, her voice shaking. He was working against them. A double agent. And the third life, the secret life, wasn't just about espionage. It was about protecting you. I shook my head violently. Protecting me? He lied to me. He had another family, Lydia. Children. Yes, she whispered. And he hated himself for it. But listen, he didn't marry you to use you as cover. He married you because he loved you. The cover story came later. He told me once, when the morphine made him soft, Carrie is the only truth I ever had. Tears burned my eyes. Then why didn't he tell me? Her gaze locked on mine. Because of what he stole. The key. My breath caught. It's not money. Not jewels. Not even files you can read. It's a digital vault, a system with codes to weapons, surveillance, identities. He stole it from the very people who owned him. And he hid it. Do you know where? I shook my head helplessly. In you, Lydia whispered. Not literally, Carrie. But in the one place no one else could touch, your memories. Every password he ever set, every lock, every clue, it's tied to you. The places you visited, the songs he hummed, the numbers he made you repeat without realizing. You are the key. That's why they want you. The world tilted, the night spinning around me. I remembered the crossword puzzles, the strange little riddles he'd leave me, the way he insisted I memorize dates and phone numbers long after phones could store them. I thought it was quirks of a man who loved puzzles. But no, it was deliberate. Lydia's voice trembled. He didn't confess at the end because if you knew too soon, they'd torture it out of you. He wanted you to live. He thought he had more time to protect you. But death came first. I sobbed, pressing my fist to my mouth. So all of this, the phones, the money, the other family, it was all pieces of him I'll never understand? She nodded slowly. Yes. He was a man split into fragments. And he loved all of you. But he chose you to carry the truth. The men's voices drew closer. Lydia gripped my shoulders hard. I'm leaving for Ukraine tomorrow. They'll think I took the secret with me. It'll buy you time. But, Carrie, you need to decide. Run, destroy it, or use it. If you open what he left behind, you'll hold power people would kill for. Tears blurred my vision. I don't want power. I just want him back. Her eyes softened. We all do. But the dead don't return. Only their secrets remain. She pushed me toward my car. Go. Don't look back. I drove into the night, the roads a blur through my tears. The notebook sat on the seat beside me, heavy with meaning. Liam's handwriting stared back like a ghost's whisper. Denver. Berlin. Operation Magnolia. And scattered throughout, dates only I would recognize. Our anniversary. My mother's birthday. The day we met. It was true. I was the key. I pulled over at dawn, watching the sun break over the horizon. The first rays lit the pages in gold. For the first time since Liam's death, I realized I would never know all of him. But I could choose what to do with what he left me. Destroy it and finally be free. Or open it and inherit his war. As the sun climbed higher, I whispered into the light, you never know when you'll see your last sunrise. And I knew, whether I lived another day or another decade, Liam's secrets would follow me to my grave.
Subscribe to my channel to hear even more true and interesting stories from the lives of American hospice patients. In the coming days, I will post here the story of a millionaire who pretended to be a beggar and begged passersby to buy him a cheeseburger near McDonald's. Those who did not ignore his request, he gifted with brand new iPhones. And do you want to know why a rich woman who had 3 daughters bequeathed her house to an animal shelter? Wait for even more interesting stories that will make you hold your breath.